Okay, looks like things have slowed down as far as people joining. So hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this presentation. I'm excited to hear what we're going to dive into. My name is Shadley Gray with Agency Management Institute. For those of you who may not know, AMI is dedicated to helping elevate small to mid-size marketing companies with various tools, including webinars like this and the BABA Summit, which happens every year in Denver and is happening in May. So be sure to check out agencymanagementinstitute.com if you're not that familiar with everything we have to offer. Today, I'm excited to have Pat Barry and Erik Martinez here to talk about AI in 2026. Obviously, AI has taken over the conversation in the last couple of years and seems to be quickly evolving. So I'm excited to hear what the next year has to offer as far as the tools and tricks and everything else. So take it away, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shadley, and thanks to everybody for joining. We really appreciate your presence here. Like Shadley said, my name is Pat Barry. I've been in the data science field for about 20 years. Started using AI probably 2016, 17, but for more back-end type stuff. And really excited to get into it today. Again, just a little bit about me. President of AI Consulting Partners, an independent data and AI consulting agency. Like I said, spent 20 years in data science with some big companies like Discovery Channel and Google, and then spent the last 10 years with large agencies within Omnicom and WPP. I've done all kinds of stuff with data and AI. And joining me, my co-host, especially on our AMI CTO group, which we're calling the AI and Automations Peer Group, is Erik Martinez. Erik, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, hello. Glad to be here. Thanks, Pat. I'm Erik Martinez. I'm the owner of Digital Velocity Agency and the host of the Digital Velocity podcast. I am had 15 years of experience, primarily in the e-commerce and direct-to-consumer space, and for the last 15 years, I've been an accidental agency owner and participant with AMI for the last 5 years. So we're really excited to bring this topic to you today. So let's get started.
Yes.
If you thought 2024 was the year of experimentation and 2025 is the year of adoption, what do you think 2026 will be?
I mean, to me, the natural progression would be to start using agents and get AI into your business. I think just like you said, 2024, it was kind of coming out, people starting to use it. 2025, it's here, it's changing real rapidly. What do we do? And I think it's kind of getting to the point, especially as I talk to more clients, as we talk to folks within AMI, working with agents and building agents, particularly to, help with your workflows, your internal workflows. And I think that's where it's going to go. It's only going to get stronger. And it's really going to be that, again, like bringing those efficiencies in and potentially starting to see your digital employees coming to bear in the form of agents. So that's where I think it's going. That's where I think it's going. Erik, how do you think, in your opinion, assuming you agree with me that we're going to become a more agent-based workforce, how do you think this is going to manifest itself, like right out of the gate? Do you think it's going to be straight up president of the company is replaced, he's going to become an AI robot, or do you think we'll start maybe a little bit smaller?
I think we'll start a little bit smaller, and that we will actually have to spend a lot of time redefining your workflows. So every agency has a complicated set of workflows from sales and discovery all the way to delivery and handoffs all throughout that process. And I think there's a lot of friction in some of those processes and the handoffs in particular between departments to the next department, to scheduling and project management down to the people who are creating the work and then QAing the work and then delivering the work to the clients. There's a lot of steps in those processes. And I think
Mhm.
by deploying AI intelligently, using agents and automation that we'll be able to simplify some of those processes, reduce that friction, and improve the quality of work that we're generating. So, Pat,
Yeah.
for those people in the audience, I know uh, that are going, "What is an agent?" Or maybe everybody already knows, and I'm the one who needs the definition. But what is an agent?
I mean, it's a broad definition. And I really don't think, I'll be honest, I don't have a Webster's dictionary in front of me, but to me, an agent, it can be anything from obviously ChatGPT is an agent, answering questions at an expert level, being able to go, but beyond a search engine. So being able to perform a search, search through the top 10 websites that come back for that search, and then present you an answer based on what they found, all within, half a second. So I think an agent could be that, just a simple research, being able to do high level research quickly, or an agent can perform a task just like a human with better efficiency and the same or better accuracy. So just keeping it high level. That said, I guess Eric, you talked a little bit about automations in the workplace. Where do you think some of those automations are going to have the greatest value? I'm sure obviously it's kind of end of fantasy football season. Is it going to be office fantasy football agents picking people's teams, or is it going to be for like real work, the actual stuff that people get paid for?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the one of the things I see that applies to every single business is internal communications. I think the ability to streamline that communication workflow from the beginning, sales collects a lot of information, the team collects a lot of information during a kickoff or discovery with a client, and then breaking down that information into pieces. All that communication needs to be relatively seamless and everybody needs to be working from the same playbook. So I think one of the biggest opportunities is to automate that process or semi-automate that process to the point where the information's flowing in the right direction to the right people at the right time. And I think that's going to be challenging. I think another place where automation's going to have an impact is this concept of agentic shopping.
Hmm.
And what is, you know, like what is agentic shopping? Well, you know, we're starting to see the beginnings of this right now where you can go into ChatGPT as an example, looking for a particular product. I was looking for a snow shovel a few weeks ago because I've got a 400-foot driveway
I hear
and
you there, buddy.
and
I
I
hear
don't
you
have
there.
and I have manual shovels, and my wife and I are like, this is way too much work. We don't get a lot of snow where we live, but we get enough that when it happens. And so I went into Chat GPT and I'm like, hey, what do I need to know? What type of shovel should I be looking for? And I don't want something that's gas powered and I don't want something that's corded because I have a 400-foot driveway. What are the options out there? And Chat OpenAI released this a couple weeks ago where it now gives you a really nice side by side comparison. Not only to tell you what you need to know about the product, but it will give you some nice side by side comparisons and tell you and show you and provide links to various manufacturers or sources for these products. Well, what does that mean? Today, I still have to click through to the website, but I think very soon the concept of clicking through to a website is going to go away and that you're going to be able to get your agent to return that information to you. You're going to make a decision and then you're going to say, okay, here's my credit card, go buy it. And I
Exactly.
think when you're thinking about that workflow from a user perspective or a client's perspective, what do we have to do in terms of making sure that we can automate that process and make it seamless so that we're actually getting the right information discoverable for the client and that shopping experience, regardless of what they're buying. It could be insurance, it could be a product like a snow shovel, it could be any of those things. So I think there's some real work that needs to be done in that particular area. How about you, Pat?
I mean, I'd say, one great stuff. I know the shoveling's been a pain this year in the Midwest with the shotgun blast of snow we've received so far this year. I think for me, it's more just the multi-agent systems, getting those agents that can perform. You don't necessarily need the Chat GPT 5.2 model to do a lot of the stuff. Some of the older legacy models, like summarizing meeting notes, writing copy, checking legal for compliance type of stuff. I think that'll be as some of the systems get better and better, and they're already kind of there. You can do some of the stuff now. I think you'll start to see people really truly taking some of those back office tasks or those simple like day-to-day things that take more time, and those will get automated, allowing them to take on a second client or come up with a different product or strategy for their client already to help, kind of increase their value. And even, just going to the next slide, kind of looking at what a multi-agent workflow looks like. Just a real simple, and again, simple in the sense that these things will be, easier and easier to build. You can do a lot of this with no code right now. But just as an example for an ad agency, I worked in ad agencies for 10 years. There's a lot of copy being written, believe it or not, guys, a whole bunch. And that's kind of one of the good things that AI is really good at. So, you picture, you're sitting in front of kind of this maybe custom terminal that somebody has built for you. You can tell an agent like, hey, I need you to write this type of blog article for this brand in this specific tone, or generate, a whole bunch of social media ad headlines and titles, make them all different and varied. But then there's that second step of like, you can't just throw that stuff up and publish it. It usually has to go to all of our friends in the compliance and legal team to say like, hey, can we say that? And again, like your compliance and legal frameworks for the most part, they're static, they're standard. They don't really change. So picture like one agent coming up with 50 different social media titles. It sends it to your legal agent that has all the framework and compliance knowledge as its knowledge base. And the legal agent saying like, listen, these 25 are good. These other 25, you can't say that. And that agent just automatically sends those back to the copywriting agent, and the process continues until all 50 are approved. And so, again, instead of, two humans going back and forth, probably over email and then meeting face to face to review in person, something like this where guidelines are very set and standard, can be done with an agentic AI flow. And again,
So,
just something simple like this.
so Pat, where's the human in the loop in this type of process?
So the human in the loop would be once the legal agent has done its job to then send the titles to the human approver and say, do you even like these? Because then the human can say, you know what? I'm glad all 50 of these, they know they can use them. They might not like them all. They can always say, we'll take these 20, these 30, these are the best. You know what? Send these back, these ones we don't like. Send them back to the writing agent, tell them we don't like them, so it learns from that. And so it knows like these types of headlines and titles in the future are no good. We don't need them. So that's kind of where your human in the loop would come in, is after this process. And that could be the legal agent potentially sending it to a human in the loop, an actual your compliance or a legal officer to review its work, before sending it to be done. Or if it's all approved, again, sending it right to that copy person saying, listen, we came up with these 50, they're all approved for use. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. And then that way the writing agent learns again. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a way to get the human in the loop there. But with all this automation, how is this hitting the bottom line for clients and even internally? So I guess Eric, like, how should we be thinking about ROI? We've either using Google Workspace, Microsoft Office, and their kind of agentic offerings with, a Chat GPT, maybe a Mid Journey for some more specialty image creation. But where's the savings, man? Do you have any thoughts? How would we get to ROI?
Yeah. Well, I think, we have the old measures of ROI, which, timesheets, billable hours, the actual dollars coming in the door, and those are going to remain incredibly important as we go through this. A lot of the resources that I'm following are talking about how do we build revenue per employee. In the AMI world, that's AGI per employee. How do we continue building that? Well, there's two ways, right? Bring more efficiency or grow. And I think the opportunity for measuring ROI is certainly going to be those hard metrics of dollars AGI per employee, but then also like how do we unlock better opportunities for our employees? How do we create more value for our clients? How do we improve the quality of our work? Well, it used to be the three things, right? You could have quality, price, or speed. And I think today AI unlocks the opportunity to maybe push on all three of those, where in the past, you could only push on two. Pat, what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, I would definitely agree that agency model is just it's shifting and changing. The days of billable hours, they're still there a little bit from what I hear, but it's just not the same. I look at it again as like those new measures of value, sending around just a survey to see how much happier your employees are, depending on the size of your agency. I look at it as, can the individual person just do more and maintain that same level of happiness? Normally I work spend a lot of time in ad agencies. Sometimes they just give you more work because they don't have enough revenue to hire somebody else to do it. But with AI, that should be possible. Like if you have the right agents in place, maintain that same, I'll be blunt, 45 to 50 hour kind of standard work week in an agency, but really not take it farther than that and still be comfortable, be able to handle a little bit more work and a little bit more work as the technology gets better. But again, I think it's that, are you able to do more quality work with less time and put out just sheerly a higher volume of quality work as well? I think that's really going to be the key. But I think some of it is too is, how do organizations just start? Like we hear a lot about, Eric, I know we talk about this a lot too, is we'll talk to agencies, especially within the AMI ranks, that okay, we've got our Office Suite stuff, whatever it is, Google or Microsoft. And then, you've got, well, they bought us all ChatGPT licenses. Well, that's great, but everybody's just kind of off like using it. And to me, it just seems like, kind of a big risk or blind spot, for an organization. So, Eric, what do kind of with all this stuff out there and the way it's changing so quickly, it's moving fast. Like, what do you think some of those risks or blind spots are for organizations, which it seems like could be a whole other webinar topic in itself?
I think it could. I think before we jump into the concept of shadow AI, because I think that's one of the things, I want to go back a little bit to the last thing. And I think, it's going to be a little bit painful at the beginning. In
Mhm.
order to get the benefits from the AI agents, there's going to be this learning curve. I was talking to a colleague and she does these amazing automations. I'm just sitting here going, every time she introduces an automation, I'm like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that? And she, the thing is, but when you sit down and talk with her, it's like she spent 2 years working on that.
Yeah.
She spent 2 years to figure out how to automate 256, I think it was 256 tasks in her organization.
Is that what she's up to now? Impressive.
Yeah, that's what she's up to. So, I think there's a little bit of pain at the beginning where you don't get that initial benefit. And I encourage everybody to keep plowing through it and not make it so burdensome, but just take one small thing and improve upon it.
Mhm.
So I think that one of the biggest risks is this concept of shadow AI. I have run into multiple organizations who are like, we do not allow AI in our business. Now that they're not agencies in this particular case. I don't think there's an agency on the planet who's not using AI in some way, shape, or form. But you sit there and go, but your employees are using it. And I'll give you a good example. My wife works for a manufacturer, and within their company, they're not and this is a large corporation, enterprise corporation, where they're not using AI systemically within the organization, but they allow their employees to use it on their phones.
Hmm.
And
Crazy.
yet they're in a manufacturing environment that has highly proprietary systems and highly proprietary products that they produce. And that's what you don't want to get, and in large organizations, IT can be a pain, but there are some reasons to have your IT team involved in the governance and the use of tools. So, we encourage everybody use paid, use the paid solutions. If you have team members using free solutions and then putting client data in there, whatever that is, that's becoming available for the models to train. And I think that's a very significant risk.
Yeah.
Pat, what about you?
I mean, it's the exact same. I think it's, a lot of 2025 and the exploration phase of AI was, I mean, we heard more companies, and I have companies asking me questions about non-agency. Hey, I bought ChatGPT for the whole company like a year ago. I don't know even what people are using it for. Like, okay, well, you gotta rein it in. You need probably probably an AI usage policy within your organization. It's one more thing in your employee handbook that you need to put in. Like, can you use it outside of what we've bought for you? I mean, I have friends, colleagues, like whoever that they're just going, they bought their own subscription to Perplexity for $20 a month, and they use some of that type of stuff for work. I mean, the first bullet on here is from me. Like, I have a company I'm talking to. I've worked with them for years, and they're curious. Like, hey, got a bunch of people using ChatGPT for some internal stuff. It's real clandestine. They love it. They know what the crackdown's coming. Well, now what do we do? Can we use Microsoft for all the same stuff? Like, well, guess what? Like you're gonna have to, because if it's a company policy, and it's in there and you're not allowed to use AI to do that particular task, yeah, there's jeopardy. There's potential jeopardy, not only for yourself, but for the company, depending on what they do, what sort of data and information that they actually handle. So organizations just writing out, and again, like just throw it into ChatGPT, help me write an AI usage policy for my company. Ask me questions for clarity. It will help you write a base policy that you can at least then give to your compliance teams and say, hey, look, I got a starting point for us. You guys don't have to come up with this from scratch. Let's work to get this into the employee handbook, because I do think, while it is still the wild west of AI, there's implications for usage for this stuff. And the more you can be crystal clear with your employees, again, especially in the agency space where you have so many different disciplines potentially using it for all kinds of different reasons, laying it down and saying like, this is what you can use it for, this is what you can't use it for. Here are your approved tools. Here are the tools you cannot use. You will never be able to log into these with your work account. Don't try it, so on and so forth. And so, I know that's one of the things I've really been hitting on is like you need to write down policy, and it should be in conjunction with your employee handbook and your work policies as well, because it really is key. You don't want to be held liable for any of these things. A poor deliverable to a client with a single mistake, again, depending on the industry, that can be really bad for everybody, both your client and yourself. And so again, like making sure AI usage policies are crystal clear is really a big deal. Um, and I think it's too, it's more, I guess, Eric, kind of to build on that, how would you think about, kind of bringing that into the workplace? How do you start to manage this change?
You start to manage that change. I think, the very, very first thing I would do is really just say, hey, here is the one thing that we're going to absolutely use. We're always going to use ChatGPT, or we're always going to use Gemini, or we're always going to use Copilot, for better or worse. Just start there. And then once you have that clarity, then you can figure out what it is, how you can use those tools to start impacting your business. Because I think if you're saying, hey, we're going to allow you to use any tool you want, you're just going to have chaos. You're going to have orchestrated chaos within your organization. So pick one set of tools and start there, and then start slowly adding on to that policy. Honestly, I think your initial policy should be no more than one page. It should be
Yeah.
really simple, very
Mm.
easy to understand for the staff so that, hey, they know what the ground rules are. And then you guys also have a little bit of an internal AI council, which involves IT, the marketing department, their operations team, and the executive team to start shaping what those future policies are. So I think that's definitely a simple thing. And if you're a small team, you can do that already in a quick conversation, 15 minutes a week. Like, hey, how are we using AI? What challenges are we running into it? What needs to become a part of our policy, and just start evolving it on day one. Let's move on, Pat, and talk a little bit about one blind spots. And because I think there's a number of blind spots in organizations when it comes to AI.
Mhm.
Um, the first one that comes to mind is I hear this all the time when I'm talking to agency owners and their teams. Like, I'm using AI and it sounds just like me. I have a a paid search strategist, and she says this all the time. I'm like, yeah, that's great, and and that's good because you've given it your knowledge and you've trained it to think a little bit like you. But I think that is also like, what if your assumptions are wrong?
Exactly.
Strategically, do you think you always have the right answer? And if you don't always have the right answer, your AI won't either. So how do you deal with that? Pat, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I always think I'm a pretty bright guy, but the one thing I've learned is like, one, you got to be pretty blunt with AI, or else it kind of gives you some, fun, flowery answers that you probably want to hear. And I think it's important, you have to ask it to just challenge your thinking. Like, even if it's something that you asked it to do for you, that you might not be a complete expert in, take its answer, put it into a different LLM, and really like look at this project and this output. Here was the context and background. Like search the web and find different perspectives. Dive deep into your knowledge base and are my assumptions in here correct? Poke holes. That's essentially what you can use it for too. Like you really shouldn't treat it like your output is perfect because to your point too, like it might be trained on your style and perspective. That's great for you. And if you're creating things for you, but it's important to again, like, treat it as that person to give you notes, the person that you can send your deck to and just say, hey, tear this up. Tell me what's wrong with this. What am I not seeing here? And I think that's really key because again, like getting that non-biased kind of breadth of perspective on your work is really important. And take it out of your perspective. I know when I was leading the CTO group this year, one of the things I showed people was my Chat GPT system instructions, which is it's the actual paragraph that I have in my whole like Chat GPT system instructions in the settings. And I showed it to the group and they're like, wow, this is one, you took time to write this out. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, because it was telling me stuff. I needed somebody there to tell me I was wrong. And I have it blatantly in the instructions, like challenge my assumptions, ask me questions, like don't use flowery language. I basically be a jerk. Like when you're telling me stuff, not all the time, but like that's kind of what you have to do. And let it poke back because it will, but you have to tell it to. And so I think that's kind of one of the bigger things, to kind of you don't believe everything that it spits out. And especially as you start to use it more, I think one of the things that I start to think about is, this is great. We have access to all this stuff. It's fun. It's new. It's cool. It's also, this might sound crazy. It seems really cheap to use. And that's one of the things I start thinking about is like $20 a month, and I'm doing some pretty crazy stuff in here. How long is that gonna last? So I know just Eric, as an accidental agency owner, when you start to think about, costs around AI, like again, it's going to increase costs for things usually don't go down. I wish they did, but how do you think costs are going to change in 2026? Do you think we're going to start seeing like, all right, $1 million an agent? or we kind of continue with this like, there's some costs, it's not too bad, but maybe like a slight increase over time. What are your thoughts, man?
I think it's going to get more expensive. It's really, really, really inexpensive to buy intelligence today.
Mm,
And if you think about it, that's what we're buying. We're buying intelligence. And the question is, how much intelligence are we using to do the things? Certain things, certain tasks require way more intelligence. And some of you are gonna sit here, like we're gonna talk about creative for a second. Generating imagery is gonna get more expensive. Um,
mhm,
Google rolled out Banana a couple months ago. They keep improving it. It's an incredible tool. They've just metered it. The latest version is metered. I've got it attached to a credit card, and it's not very expensive. But a couple months ago, I wasn't paying for it. And
mhm,
if you look at any introduction into technology, you see they come in at a low price point and then they start adding on.
mhm,
They start trying to get you to buy more services. Think about when cell phones were when they were trying to get adoption rate up. They gave you the phones for free. They
mhm,
gave you the device for free and you were paying for minutes. Then they went to the subscription model. You're no longer paying for minutes. Then you were paying per text. And then they started charging for the phones. And now you full on pay for the phone and you have text and messaging and calling all built into your phone. So every technological cycle is going to end up this way. We will see this evolve over the next couple of years because companies like OpenAI with ChatGPT, they're blowing billions and billions of dollars and they have to make it up. Companies like Google who have a war chest, they're not going to want to lose money, but right now they're willing to subsidize getting some of their tools out into the market. So I think that we're going to see some of these, all you can eat subscription fees start going up, especially as we start deploying agents. Pat, what do you think?
I mean, same boat, and I'll even get a bit more granular, and it's token costs for me. And I know anybody at AMI that's heard kind of one of my talks from last year, like even with Eric this year, like a lot of people just aren't thinking about every time you write a prompt and then hit enter, that there's a cost associated with that. But then there's also a cost associated of the AI responding to you and that big box where it starts spitting out text and answering your question, finding articles, links, again, whatever it is. There's a cost with that. And so I do think in the very near future, if not now, and again, whoever's C-suite position, this will cover either a CIO, potentially chief marketing officer, whoever has that C-suite in their title. I do think cost, but specifically token costs for what you're doing with AI will become a very big deal, become just a part of a line item in a budget sheet. And I think there will be a task, someone's job will just to be to kind of make sure that the prompts that you're using are optimized for cost or token cost and at the same time for output. Now, output's a little bit harder because you'd have to look at the model you're using and what you're using it for. To kind of go back to Eric's example, creating an image or a video is much more expensive than getting just a text response back from any sort of agent. So, what you're using it for, optimizing your input prompts, I think those will all be again like just someone's new job, part of one of their jobs, and they'll probably have an agent to help them manage it because that's something that you could easily manage with an agent. But I think that'll be, again, one of the keys to just making that ROI work for you. While you're producing all these efficiencies, that's great. But after a while, the efficiencies are going to start to eat up budget. And I think you're going to have people come in and say, like, okay, we need to reduce our token costs. And you'll start to see probably whole AI agents and in conjunction with humans, optimizing, big prompts for organizations. So they just can produce the same output, but at a cheaper cost, a cheaper input cost and a cheaper output cost. So again, I think that'll be a big, kind of a big deal. Um,
Yeah, so you heard it here first, folks. Pat just invented the next accounting job. Thanks, Pat.
Everybody thought accounting was going away, but no, it's
Nope,
just
it's not going
extreme.
away. It's coming back and it's going to have an IT component to it.
Exactly.
Pat, as we
Exactly.
move, let's move off of this topic and let's start thinking a little bit else, a little more about 2026. What else do agencies need to be thinking about in 2026?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing for me, and I know this is, I'm sure all you guys are reading the news, ad week, whatever it is, advertising on AI platforms. ChatGPT has blatantly come out and said they are going to do it. Everybody else will follow suit. I frankly, I'm kind of surprised it hasn't started yet. I know we talked a little bit earlier about, ChatGPT or OpenAI, and they're not a profitable company. They're just burning cash right now. That's not going to last. Like they're going to have to make money. Advertising is a great way to do it. So, I think this will be really, again, like something that you're just as much as we had back when I entered the workforce back in the early 2000s and the internet was starting to fire up and paid search came out. I do think maybe probably towards the end of this year, or even into next year, you'll have people that are specialists, just like they are with Google Ads, ChatGPT ads, Gemini ads, those types of things. It'll, again, just like it says, it's going to create a whole new channel, be a different way of thinking. I know we talk about SEO/GEO a lot. This will have a massive effect on how you write your articles. But I think again, like as these platforms, and frankly, just from a monetary perspective, like they have to do something to make more money. I know we just talked about the rising cost of tokens, but I don't see any of them jacking up like subscriptions every single month because that would just turn people off. They're still too young. But again, like this seems like the next logical step, of really like just starting to build out an ad buying team related to AI. And it'll probably be people that were in social and paid search and say, okay, start learning this now. And it'll be another skill set that people have to learn. And as hopefully as kids graduate from college, this is another specialty that they can really get into. Um, and start to understand, and kind of frankly get looking at the education piece. What's it going to take to learn some of this stuff? Eric, I know you've got a couple people on your staff working for you. What do you think some of the skills, to succeed with? I know we hear it a good amount in our groups, but what are you thinking, man? Is it all just prompting?
No, it's not just prompting. I think prompting is a fundamental skill now. And I think we need to be teaching people how to prompt better. I mean, first start with just asking questions, but there are ways to ask those questions that get you better results. And it's like any skill, you have to practice it and learn it, and then iterate on it over time, and you'll get better and better. I think the other thing is, like, just from hard skills perspective, is this concept of data hygiene. I mean, this is an old IT concept that goes way, way back, like garbage in, garbage out, folks. And all of our systems, just think of the systems in an agency. We got a CRM, we got probably a project management system.
Yeah.
You probably have some creative tools that may be connected to your workflow in some way, shape, or form, and they don't always talk to each other very nicely or cleanly. And you have to move data, just like, you're moving sales data into your project management system. Your project management system is probably moving data to your accounting system. And in all of that, those systems weren't necessarily designed to talk to each other seamlessly. In some cases, you've got systems that have all of those functions built in, and theoretically their data is clean. But I've looked at a lot of systems over the years. I've implemented ERP systems, and I can tell you that there's no perfect set of data. Data is one of the most important things, and getting a handle to get more out of your AI than less. So really, really having good data cleanliness policies and practices within your organization. What about you, Pat? What do you think?
Well, I would say, I mean, pretty much career data scientist. So yes, data hygiene is really important. And I think just to touch on it a bit more at a bit more granular level, like how you just name your files, like in Google Drive or SharePoint, that's going to be a real big deal moving forward. Because if you want an agent to search your whole SharePoint drive and find this specific, chart or graph from this specific PowerPoint, you're gonna have to name that PowerPoint a certain way. So I absolutely love that data hygiene. That's a thing. It has been for at least the past 20 years because I've been in it. People have had to do that before AI, but it's even more important now. And again, for me, a lot of it too is it's the human stuff, like empathy, like just linguistics, writing, like people with a strong command of language, you will do very well with AI. Like a lot of it is so much like writing and structure. Being able to, and again, you'll use your voice a lot more. I know we have it in here, like, using voice. You can do a lot of that now. I typically talk to my agents. It just makes it easier. I'm not the best typer in the world. But again, being able to, relate back to people, and communicate with written English language, is such a huge skill. And to hit on too, like that critical thinking and problem solving, like that's for me in my career, that's I've had to be able to do that in data science. You don't have a choice. Like you have to have that. But I think being able to, it's really helped me think like how the computer thinks, how the AI thinks, and thinking through that logical process of there's a certain way and a certain way to write your prompts. And so I think if you have that combination of logic, problem solving, kind of critical thinking skills with a strong command of language, you can really make AI do a lot of kind of different cool stuff for you. And I think that'll be key is kind of defining like, what will the AI do and what does the human do moving forward? And the human is going to have to do more human things. So again, like critical problem solving, remember the AI works for you. You do not work for the AI. We are a long way from any sort of, Terminator-like future that's not coming anytime soon. You'd pull out the electricity and it would die. Same thing with this type of stuff. So, being human, linguistics, improving on writing skills. And I mean, too, even that can be kind of tough depending on what discipline you're in, within an agency. And I know leveraging those types of skills can be, kind of tough. So I guess, Eric, to kind of build on this, like, how would you, accelerate, kind of leveraging AI within your agency, especially for you as a small agency owner, based on what we just talked about.
Yeah. So I think, the first thing is a couple months ago, I went to Baycon, which is the marketing AI conference in Cleveland. I've gone now for 3 years. And one of the things I see when I go to a conference like that is the sessions that are strategic in nature kind of are sparsely attended. The sessions that are about tools tend to be heavily attended. And I would actually take a step back and say, you know what? These tools that you already have, whether you are a Microsoft shop or a Google shop or you're using ChatGPT, they are already really, really powerful and they can do a lot of things before you go out and spend money on additional tools, which you may need to from time to time. And I'm not saying it's not good to go out and have those tools, but there's a lot of things that these tools can do natively that you don't necessarily need to go spend another $50 or $100 a month. So one is start with some core tools. I think the second thing is to really invest in your team's AI literacy. I think that structured training, and there's a lot of data out that says most companies are not training their employees, that they're putting tools in their hands. They're giving you the licenses, and they're not necessarily taking the time to show you how to do it. It's kind of a go figure it out yourself. But if you want your team to grow and utilize these capabilities more frequently and better, invest in a little bit of training. A little bit of training could go a long way in getting that learning curve, getting over through that learning curve a lot quicker. And then I think the last thing is to document your workflows. It's amazing to me that even some of the best agencies that I know who have really good documented procedures have lots of holes in their documentation, because maintaining documentation is actually a challenge in and of itself. But with these tools, you can not only document, you can create little knowledge bases that are available for the whole team to be able to access. And you can start consolidating that stuff. Pat, what are your thoughts on this topic?
I mean, same type of stuff. Again, would champion all of these. I think too, it's most importantly probably that core tools piece, just because that's what, I get asked a lot. I know you get asked a lot too. And my first piece of advice is like, just what office suite do you have? It's 90% of the time either Google or Microsoft. And then kind of start to figure out from there, like what you can use within there. And then if there's something else you need to ladder up on. There's no need to go out and buy. It's the Wild West right now. There's literally a million different AI tools you can go buy. Some are reputable, some are not. And so that's kind of like you need to see how things are going to shake out. And I'd say that's the biggest piece. And literacy, man, that could be as simple as like host an hour lunch and learn just to show people how to prompt in a certain team, build confidence. I think AI came out so fast and so quick, and it changed and morphed overnight this entire year really rapidly. Just build confidence. Just show people, hey, it's okay to use it. Pair that with your AI use policy so they know what to use and when they can use it. And then I know that Eric, the most exciting piece, documenting workflows. I mean, my
It's
God,
so much fun.
everybody loves that. I mean, just document your stuff. So
Just
no,
document your stuff.
well, it is,
Write
and,
down all
and
the steps.
that's probably the hardest spot. You don't need a crazy document, but you'll start to see like put some boxes on a slide and just say Joe sends this to Larry and Larry sends it to Mary and so on and so forth. And then you'll start to see how automations can kind of take place. And then better yet, once you have those automations in place, like AI can maintain the documentation for you. You can just simply build a very custom GPT, say, here is my workflows. When I need to update these, I need you to update them for me. So kind of keeping all those things together. Um, I know kind of like moving more granularly. I know we're about 10 minutes left. Did we want to, I know we had a couple of comments in the comments section. Did we want to keep going through the slides or just go to questions?
We just have a couple more because I think a couple of these things would be useful. We can skip the AI literacy for everyone. Everybody can look at this on their own.
Yeah,
Um, but I think there's a couple of things here that I think will
examples. Yeah.
be good examples and a couple of prompt frameworks. Let's spend a few minutes on those and then open
Good
it up
call.
to questions. Um, Pat,
So
you
just
you did your sales deck in AI. We did this whole presentation using Notebook LM. What do you tell us a little bit about the sales deck project?
I have built some custom agents for myself, multiple different platforms, either Vertex AI, OpenAI's Agent Builder, ChatGPT, so on and so forth. And so, in my sales deck, I have a single slide that talks about one of my offerings, and I like to personalize it for whoever I'm talking to. It would usually take about an hour just to do some research on the company, kind of figure out what their business goals are, so on and so forth. And so I was like, geez, I know I can build an agent for this. And so I did. And so now it's just a very simple agent in a wrapper on like this little website I built for myself. And what I tell it is the name of the company's website, and then I give it about a 2 sentence command, and it'll build out I don't want to get into the product, but build out the bullets that, hey, here's how you can use this product for your company. It used to take me as a single slide, but it's the one I spend the most time on when I'm presenting my entire company and what we can offer. And so it would take me about hour, probably hour 15 minutes to put that slide together. I measured it. And then now I've got it down to it's about 10 to 15 minutes, just with some edits. So what it'll do is I just give it my prompt, It spits out the bullets. I copy paste the bullets into the slide, read it over. I typically will make an edit or two, and then it's off and running. But it's small things like this. Like it just mentally helps me out. Not have to do all that research, and I still feel just as prepared as I would going into the meeting. But enough of my automation. What's your podcast guest research, man? This seems a little bit more substantial than my teeny little slide here.
Well, I think the key point here is this was a pain point for me. Every
Mm.
prep for every podcast was taking 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours of work to research the guests, pull all their data. And even though they sometimes provide you with some of that, you want to know something about them. If they have a book, you want to read the book, right? So it took a lot of prep. And pretty much all I do now is I grab their LinkedIn profile, I grab their website. I have a pre-programmed GPT that sits there and says, okay, here's the types of questions I like to ask and how many of them. And within a few minutes, I get a bio, I get the questions for the podcast, I get a whole layout for how we're going to approach that particular podcast. And I took that down to about 30 minutes. Sometimes I spend a little more time, but generally the questions are really good. I usually send them to the guests in advance, and I never get any pushback on it. So there's little things. If you find that one thing, it's like, oh man, this is taking me 2 hours. I wish I could do it faster. You probably can. Just take that pain point, get it off your plate, get it off your plate if you can think about it.
Yeah.
Um, so let's move on to prompt frameworks. So just so you guys know, these aren't mine. This first one called Race, I
Mhm.
learned at Macon a few years ago. I use this basic concept into every single prompt. And it's not necessarily as important to follow the exact sequence here, but to kind of have all of these things. And you guys probably know already. Hey, you give it a role, tell it what it is you want it to be so that you're giving it some context, a frame for which to ask. Action is just what you want to do. What am I trying to do? The context, this is the most important part. The more information in this section, the better output you're going to get. And so, this is a relatively small example. This is a real example that I used with a client fairly recently, just trying to come up with a postcard concept for them for Christmas. And I just started with this, and then the execution is really, what are we outputting? What is it that you want to get? Do you want a wireframe? Do you want headlines? Do you want those output as a Word doc? Do you want them to be output to a PowerPoint? At this type of framework, if you just start practicing it in sequence, just initially, just to get the practice, then you can start mixing and matching where you're going with it. And I think you'll start to see as you put more context in that you will get a lot more value in from the answers that you're getting from the AI. So the second one is called Crit. I learned this at Macon this year, actually. And this was brilliant. There's a gentleman named Jeff Woods. He's the author of a book called The AI Driven Leader. He has this prompt framework. His position on it was, hey, let's turn 80% of our time into strategic thinking. And so there's really just two additional elements, and you can apply this to task-oriented prompts or strategic prompts. Using that RACE framework, you already have two of them, context and role. The interview, you can literally use this question right here. Interview me, ask me one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context. Let the AI ask you questions and you answer. And that's how you get more context into your prompts. And then when you're done with that, if you're really looking for a strategic answer, what are the 3 high-impact, non-obvious strategies I can use for this scenario? I trained somebody on this a couple of weeks ago, and her eyes just lit up because she got 3 ideas. She's like, oh, we thought kind of like that, but we never thought about putting it together that way. And so that was a really, really valuable thing for her. So you can really use the AI to answer questions and help you get better responses. And it will help you do that if you ask it the right questions. So moving here to close, we just want, before we open this up to questions, one, we want to tell you about the AI and automation peer group. Pat and I are uh, co-hosts of the group. We work on automations. We work on sharing knowledge between the peer group members. If you want some more information, email Drew at the Agency Management Institute for more information. We meet the third Wednesday of every month for 90 minutes. And then Pat and I have thrown in a bonus office hours section for additional help. So you can feel free to reach out to Pat or myself. Um, let's let's get some questions. Shadley?
We do have one that came earlier when you were talking. Where did it go? Mary said, for me, the true brass ring is being able to estimate new projects based on our admittedly messy Excel and Word documents. Any tips on how to handle this? She is using the Microsoft platform.
Okay. Yes. So I've actually you I don't know if you're setting us up, but I know we have our peer group tomorrow, AI and automations. I will be demonstrating it's a custom GPT that can do that based on some synthetic data that I've created, but you can literally ask it for a budget check. Clients asked for something extra on a project. You want some automation to check, like, okay, like, do we have the budget left? Is it within scope? So on and so forth. There is a way you can automate that with ChatGPT, but you can do it within the Microsoft suite as well. If you happen to have, at least in this moment in time, if you have Copilot Agent Builder, it's like, if you're familiar with ChatGPT, it's just like building a custom GPT, but you can connect it to your Excel sheets and your Word docs. Now, granted, I don't know how messy they are, and thanks for that context, but assuming you have clearly defined column headers in that Excel that have, if it's a money or a number column, you have numbers show up in that column and text shows up in text-based columns. You can create an AI agent with prompting that would be able to check that Excel sheet, compare it to your Word docs, and let you know how much budget is left with it based on all that documentation. Now, it's a lot more to it than that in terms of just what you'd have to write and do, but that is possible within the Microsoft suite. They do have tools now that would allow you to do that.
Yeah, I think I would add to that, just say bring all those messy docs into
Share
Copilot and
Copilot.
SharePoint
Yeah.
and and first start with just asking it some questions about the project
Mhm.
and get some answers. And that will allow you to start creating some structure around that messy data that you can then use to figure out what your estimation. So whether that's bringing in timesheets to understand how previous projects have um, performed, or bringing in your scopes of work and marrying that against it. Just start with that messy data, try to bring some organization to it using the AI, then bring your scope of work and your timesheet data into the mix, start asking some more questions. And then over time, what you're going to find is you're going to have some pretty consistent answers, and that will help you estimate future projects based on your past projects.
Mhm.
We do have another question, but because we're at hour, I do want to say that I will have the PDF of this will be available. I have dropped my email address in the chat. If you want to reach out to me, I can get it to you. Probably in the next week, we will have the video of this will be up and available on the AMI website. You can reach out to me for that as well. So with that, I will go back to one more question. Ryan asked, when it comes to documenting our processes, are there any great AI tools or prompts that you can think of that can help with this tedious process? There may not be a silver bullet for this, but I'm hopeful.
I have a 3-step process that I use.
Yeah.
And it's not complicated. You don't need any fancy tools. Very, very first thing is take a spreadsheet, put 3 or 4 columns on it. First column is what is the task? Then the next column is this how frequently do you do this task? Daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, so on and so forth. Is it a complicated task or is it a simple task? Give it a 5-point scale, rate it. And then how much time does it take? Again, give it a 5-point scale. 1's not a lot of time, 5's a lot of time. And get your team to just document that. And believe it or not, I've done this with several groups. In about 10 minutes, they'll get about 80% of the tasks that they do on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis written down. The second step is you take that and you start breaking that task down into further components, like who are the stakeholders, what triggers that task. And then as you start to do that, I record all of this stuff. As you record it, you can easily start synthesizing the data from multiple people. So you get your team doing this, record it on a Loom video, use your Teams, whatever, use your Google or Zoom. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the Google thing.
Meet.
Yeah, Google Meet. You can record all that, and then the last step is then have your team break down that task into its component steps from beginning to end. And you should have at least a minimum of 3 steps for every single task. Some are going to require 20. But again, have them record this as they do it. And you can build a knowledge base around that and bring all of the information from all your teams. So all your account managers get that, and you'll start seeing the patterns of these jobs in order to start documenting their processes. And then you can make intelligent decisions about how you really want that to be structured. So that process has worked for me.
Nice. Thank you.
Stuff.
Anybody else? I know we are over time, but does anybody else have a question? Again, I will have the presentation will be available. If you want to email me, I'll get it to you, and it will also be on the AMI website in about a week. We have to get this edited and posted, but it will be out there. So please reach out to me in the meantime if you want to get the presentation sent to you. And any other last minute questions before we jump off? Alicia says thank you with question marks. So, there's, I get it.
You're welcome, Alicia.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Really
just-
appreciate the opportunity.
That's hilarious.
No worries.
Oh,
No
okay.
worries.
You fixed it. But yeah, that was amazing. I get it. Like question marks probably made sense too. That's amazing. I love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks to everybody for joining. We really appreciate the time.
Thank you, everybody. I'm taking January off from doing these webinars, and we will pick them up in February. There will be word about that in the newsletter that will be coming out, Drew's newsletter. For those of you who get it, we'll be picking this up in February. So everyone have an extraordinary holiday season and kick off to the new year. And I look forward to seeing everyone in 2026. Thanks, guys. This was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.